What's up, guys, and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you guys are new here, then what's up? My name's Erica. Heya! How you doing? And for today's episode, as you can see from the title, I'm going to be giving you a general mythology episode all about the Golden Fleece. Now, the Golden Fleece is what impacts Jason's myth and further Medea's mythology in the ancient Greek world, and it is a very, very important part of that story. So I thought that I would give you guys the backstory that'll help you understand why Jason is asked to go and get this Golden Fleece and why it's so important that Aeetes keeps it, and further, why it is so deceptive that Medea helps Jason take it away. So before we can get into all of that, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. Obviously, when you guys hit that button, it is one of the most important things that you can do in order to help support this channel, because it lets me know that you guys are really interested in seeing my content and that you guys are enjoying my content. So please hit that button, join the little nerd family that we have going on here. And since you have done that or are currently doing that, let's get into the episode. A little disclaimer before I properly get into the myth. As I say at the start of all of these general mythology episodes, this is a general episode. So that means that this is going to be a very, very general overview of the story and of the myth that we're going to be discussing today, specifically about the Golden Fleece, but in every other episode, you know, whatever it happens to be. So the reason why I want to highlight that is because myths obviously change over time, and they do change per author. So when I do these general episodes, I always want to mention that if you need something specifically for a different author, like if you need to know this story specifically for Apollonius, who's sitting behind me, or, I don't know, Ovid is another one who covers this, then you will have to look at the specifics in that literature. I'm just going to be giving you the general points that everybody agrees on in order to construct this story. So this is general. We're not getting specific. There are going to be moments where you might know something a little bit differently based on the source material that you have read, and that is okay. And I encourage you guys to sort of take this as a base level episode in order to help propel you into other texts to get more specific. In all of those texts, I will obviously always highlight the differences and always highlight the important parts of the myth. But for today, we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it airy. We're going to keep it general. So, the Golden Fleece. Now, this Golden Fleece comes from a ram in Greek mythology, and this ram does have a name. It's wonderful. We love that. The ram's name is Chrysomalos. Now, I absolutely butchered that, and I'm relying on the Greek members of this community to help educate us all, so please leave in the comments below how to correctly pronounce that name. That would be wonderful, much appreciated, and I will pin that comment. I'm just not, look, I do read ancient Greek, have read it, have tried to pronounce things. It's just, in my head, there is a disconnect between how to spell something when I write it out like phonetically and how to actually pronounce it, if that makes sense. So I'm really bad at pronunciation, and you guys tend to butcher me on this channel for it. There are so many people in the comments being like, Erica, this is horrendous. So I'm relying on you guys, okay? That is the name of the ram, though, this golden fleeced ram. But what's magical about this ram is not just that it has a golden fleece, but also further, it has wings. You might be thinking, this is a little much for mythology, Erica. Even for me, we've got a ram that's gold and that's winged. Not the weirdest thing, guys, okay? I swear there are stranger things in mythology, and if you're gonna read this genre, you're gonna have to expand your realm of imagination, because stranger things will happen. This is one of the more tame and logical stories. Anywho, how did this flying golden fleeced ram come into being? Well, I have that story for you as well. Mythology offers that for us. Once upon a time, there is a beautiful nymph, and I'm talking that she is like a drop-dead gorgeous, okay? She's known for having like suitors all around her constantly. Everybody wants a piece of her. She's super hot. And obviously, one day Poseidon sees her and Poseidon's like, mine. So he goes and he picks up this nymph. By the way, the nymph does have a name. I just realized I haven't been saying it. I'm not confident again in how to pronounce it. So the name is up on the screen so that you guys can read it. Again, I have read the ancient Greek, but anytime I say this nymph's name, no one knows who I'm talking about. So, anywho, that's her name. You guys can tell us as well. The Greek people that corrected me for the ram's name, correct me for this nymph's name. But what you need to know is that she's a nymph and she's really hot, and Poseidon wants her like yesterday. So Poseidon goes and picks her up. You guys can get the context of that. So he goes to pick her up and he brings her to this isolated island so that they can hook up in private. But they are not in their divine forms. That Poseidon decides he's going to transform himself into a ram, and he transforms this, nymph, this beautiful nymph, into a U, not like a Y-O-U. I have a lot of foreign listeners. This is spelt like E-Y-E, just so that you guys know. I don't know how the captions are going to pick up that word. E-Y? Did I say E-Y? I meant E-W-E. Wow, Erica. Anywho, E-W-E, a U, okay? So she's transformed to a U, and they hook up as he's a ram and she's a U. Boom, done. Deed's done. She then obviously impregnated by Poseidon, and she ends up giving birth to a winged ram. How the wings came into it, uncertain. I'm gonna be honest with you, but it happens either way, right? She births a golden fleeced ram with wings. And that's about as much of this myth that you really need to know. There are different variations of it. Again, I think Ovid expands it massively, but that's the really important thing, okay? So this ram is divine, but it's also entirely an animal. Yeah. Fast forward an unspecified amount of years, and where the myth picks up is, I said unspecified amount of years really just casually. I do want to just make it known that we literally have no idea the time frame in between these things. Mythology doesn't have a really nice timeline as well, unfortunately. We can kind of group things in areas. This is all part of the same area, but God, it could have been the year after. It could have been 3 years after. I don't know. You just need to know that somewhere along the mythological timeline, a king shows up. Okay, and this king's name is Athamas. Okay, again, his name is appearing up on the screen. So Athamas is the king of this place, Orchomenos. Okay, so he ends up bagging himself this beautiful divine wife. Okay, another divine woman who's super hot, ends up marrying this king. They have 2 kids together, and much like in every story in ancient Greece, that after the woman has kids, the man is very uninterested in her. And this is not me bashing men. You guys know that that's not what this channel is for. However, this is just fact. When it comes to Greek mythology and ancient history, the women have kids and the men are like, that's great, where my hoes at? Quite literally, okay? That happens all the time. It happens all the time in ancient world, from ancient Greece to ancient Rome and everywhere else. Men do not stay with one woman. They're married to one woman. But then they move the fuck on, especially after the kids. So that's the case with this, right? It's very predictable, is what I'm trying to tell you. That the fact that she had 2 children to this man, and he was like, yeah, I could do with a younger model now, actually. That would be nice. Not uncommon. Anywho, she has the kids. Athamas is really, uninterested in her. And he ends up spying a new, younger potential bride, right? Whose name is Ino or Ino, depending on how you pronounce that. So she is actually the daughter of Cadmus. So Cadmus is the legendary founder of Thebes. So this is a very important woman. And Athamas sees her and falls madly in lust with her. And I stress lust because this is the ancient world. And no doubt if she were to have kids, he would then leave her. Whatever, this is a mythological character. He falls madly in lust with her, divorces his other wife with the kids, right? He's like, you can have them. And he marries Ino or Ino and brings her to his, realm in southern Greece. Now, when the young Ino shows up, she is not happy that this man has had kids with another woman. And the reason why she's not happy about this is because she wants her children with Athamas to end up being the heirs to his kingdom, obviously, right? We need to bear in mind that marriage in the ancient world was seen as a business agreement more so than a love agreement, right? So when she gets married and she realizes there are these 2 older kids, she's like, we gotta get rid of them. They gotta go. Quick one. You guys are always asking me the best way to support the channel outside of actually subscribing to MoAn Inc, which obviously, thank you guys so much for all of your ongoing support. when it comes to subscriptions and sharing the channel with all of your friends, getting them to subscribe, and joining the nerdy family that we have here on YouTube. It means more than I can tell you. But outside of that, what's the best way that you guys can help support the channel? And that will always be donating to MoAn Inc. Now, there is a link in the description below where you guys can make a donation, and you guys can also do it via my website. However, the reason why this is so important is because donations go towards buying all of the books that you see behind me. They go towards funding the programs I use to edit, buying equipment, even programs that you don't even know I have to subscribe to, like royalty-free music, and all of those sorts of things that help create this video, that help create this series, and all the videos that go into making this channel to help you guys learn and to help you guys engage with the classics. So the link that you guys will need is www.ko-fi.com/MoAn Inc. And that's where you can make donations as little as £1 and as much as you want to. Literally anything counts, because even £1 goes towards getting a book. £1 helps towards paying those bills that help me create this content. So one more time, that is www.ko-fi.com/MoAn Inc. Okay, back to the video. So what does she do? What does Ino decide is the best way to rid the world of these two innocent children that literally haven't done anything? She decides that she is going to, this is a really elaborate plan, by the way. She decides she's going to tamper with the grain of the kingdom. Okay, bear with me. Again, really, really thought out plan to the point where it's kind of scary how much planning this needed. So she ends up tampering with the grain, which means that it's just like not edible, okay? It's not doing its thing. It's not turning over quick enough. If there are farmers watching this, can someone explain the actual agriculture of this? Because to me, it's just, the grains weren't graining, right? So the grain weren't doing their thing, which means that people weren't getting fed, right? So obviously this goes back to the king. Athamas hears this and he goes into full-on panic mode, right? He needs to feed his subjects. He needs people to love him as king. So he panics and he decides to send this little posse to the oracle at Delphi. This is a very common thing if you guys are new here to mythology. Super common thing that the ancients would have done, especially in mythology, is to send embassies to the oracle at Delphi to figure out, what god they had wronged or just what was going on. So that's what Athamas does. He does the very logical thing, sends his posse, not knowing that his wife was the one who was tampering with the grain. Obviously, his crazy wife, because we have to acknowledge what's going on here, his crazy wife, she realizes that that's what he's going to do, right? So she knows that. So she's, prior to this moment, sent out an embassy of her own, a little posse of her own, to intercept when the king's posse are going to the oracle at Delphi, right? So they end up intercepting, I don't know, on some road or something. It's unspecified in the myth, but they end up intercepting along the way, and one way or another, different methods are presented in different mythologies. This posse, the posse of the queen now, does convince the posse of the king to go back without seeing the oracle at Delphi and to tell him that the only way to make sure that the grain comes back is to sacrifice his two children. Absolutely, ray of fucking sunshine, you're married there. So you can guess where this is going. The posse makes it back down to the palace, tells the king this news, and the king seemingly doesn't really bat an eye, and he's like, that makes totally logical sense. They're a plague. We shouldn't like them anyways. Oh no, goodbye, children. He sets up his sacrifice, and he goes to sacrifice his two children in order to appease the gods, in order to feed his kingdom. Now, obviously, right, the kids have a divine mother. As I mentioned, super hot, super cool, super divine, was just trashed and dumped by this, lame mortal guy. Ew, no thank you. So she sees this happening and she's like, not on my fucking watch. And she gets the Golden Fleece ram that I was mentioning before to swoop down, handy it has wings now, to swoop down and to then pick up the two kids. So the two kids are called Phrixus and Helle. Not the nicest of names, but they're not the worst that we see in mythology. Again, got to admit, I think Idomeneus is a bit more of a mouthful than Phrixus. But anyways, so goes down to save the kids, successfully does this. So the kids are not sacrificed, and they are picked up by this ram, and they are sped away. So that sounds all nice and dandy, but in different myths, this is kind of where we get a lot of different versions coming in to this story of the Golden Fleece and of the ram and of Helle and Phrixus. Either the mother of the kids has warned the kids to tell them, hey, this ram is coming, don't be dumb about it and don't look over the side, you're gonna get dizzy, you're gonna fall off, so just look straight ahead until you hit the ground on the other side, kind of a thing. Or it happens to be, I think it's Phrixus in one version warns Helle not to look over, either way, we get this warning of don't look over the side of the ram whilst it's flying because you will get dizzy and you will fall off. It's going to be very high up. The journey's very long, so just look straight ahead because the whole plan was to bring them as far away from Athamas as possible that he wouldn't be able to hunt them down and to kill them, right? So she, the mother, wants to send them all the way to the Black Sea. So when the kids get on the ram, there is that warning. However, obviously, this is Greek mythology. One of the kids doesn't listen. And that one kid happens to be Helle. So as the ram is flying over this body of water, Helle does look over. She ends up getting dizzy and she does fall off the ram to her death. And where she falls is actually then known as Helle's Sea, or in ancient Greek, Hellespont, which nowadays is the Dardanelles. So that is why that body of water was called the Hellespont in ancient Greece. I always love little stories like that sort of just explain geographical locations. But anyway, so that's where she falls off. But the ram doesn't stop. The ram keeps going with Phrixus all the way to Colchis, which is then ending up where the ram sort of lands. It ends up landing, and Aeetes, hearing Phrixus's story, is very warm and welcoming. If you guys don't know who Aeetes is, not only is he the king of Colchis, he's also the son of the Titan god Helios. He is the brother of the famous Circe and Pasiphae. Pasiphae is the woman who has the Minotaur, and also her daughter is Ariadne, right? So very well-connected, important mythological family. Aeetes hears Phrixus' story and is very happy to keep him in the palace and to keep him in Colchis, right? He's more than happy to allow this stranger to stay. So, to thank Aeetes, there are two versions of this. One is that either Phrixus sacrifices the ram, right? So sacrifices the ram and gives the fleece to Aeetes, and Aeetes then goes to hang it up on a tree in the sacred grove of Ares in Colchis, and then guards it with a serpent, right? So that's one version, which seems very logical. That checks out mythologically, it checks out historically. The other version, which I actually kind of like a little bit better, is that the golden ram shimmies out of its little, golden fleece and kind of offers the golden fleece to Aeetes. I can't even say this with a straight face, but it shimmies out of it, it offers the golden fleece, and then when it gets sacrificed, it ends up becoming the constellation Aries in the sky because it's the super diva, divine kind of sheep ram thing. So the ram ends up dying, is what I'm trying to tell you. That in order for Phrixus to stay, the ram ends up dying, whether it's because it becomes the constellation by shimmying off its little thing, or because it was just, cold-blooded sacrificed. Whatever it happens to be, the ram ends up dying. And that is how Aeetes gets the Golden Fleece. So there is a lot of importance with the Golden Fleece, right? It is so hard to read Jason and the Argonauts, to read this incredible story from Apollonius of Rhodes, and to not understand that, because knowing the history of this fleece, knowing that it was this offering, knowing that it allowed Phrixus to settle, because we meet, Phrixus's sons and his lineage in this book, right? So there's a lot of that in there. And that is why it's so important that Aeetes has this thing. It was a gift. It was this incredible story behind how this stupid ram ended up coming into being anyways, it's a crazy, impossible story that ended up with it being in Aeetes' possession. So there is a lot of importance in that. And there is a lot of importance in Jason going to get it and bring it back to Greece, which obviously we'll get into the reasons behind that in the book. But obviously I will stress again that it is fundamental that you guys know that this was a general mythology episode. So there are so many variations of the story I just told you. Some not as dark, some even more dark. You know, whatever it happens to be, bear that in mind. This was very general overview of how that myth goes and the most common plot points that people agree on, right? So if you guys are reading any specific text, do know that there will be details in those that are different and that you guys can focus on and should focus on for that text, because that will help you understand that story and the motives that that author had much, much better than this video will. And of course, the book that is sitting behind me is the Arognautica. So the video that you guys should be watching next is my breakdown of Arognautica book 1. So please go and hit that video, go and watch that, read along with me, and study this incredible epic poem from Apollonius of Rhodes. So I'll be seeing you guys over there, and thank you guys so much for watching.